the last couple of weeks have been busier than my life has been over the last few months.
Yeah.
So I had a client come back after working with another agency for a couple of years. I had 2 other clients increase my engagement with them. So it's been much busier, which is great, except that I had added a lot of stuff to my plate while I wasn't busy. So all of a sudden I'm in this like time scarcity, time crunch thing. And I was feeling just pulled in too many directions and like overwhelmed and not feeling like myself. And so then I was working an event for the group that I volunteer with. Like we go to events and do outreach to try and encourage more people to be volunteers. So I signed up for that last Saturday, and it was a 5K. And I was like, there was 2 shifts. You could come at 7 or you could come at 10:30. And I'm like, well, I'm a morning person. I'll come at 7 and just get it out of the way.
What do you mean 5K? You were running 5K or?
We're just at the race. At,
like,
we
have
have
a
see.
Booth.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, no, not
You're
running.
like running and telling people about.
Please try. Yeah, come help foster kids.
Yeah.
No, that would be great. No, we just had to like stand in a booth and give people information. But I didn't pay attention to where the event was. I thought it was local, and our county is huge, and our group services the entire county. So the event was actually an 1.5-hour drive away from where I live, and I had to be there at 7 o'clock in the morning. God. Which means I had to get up at 4:30 on Saturday morning to leave my house by 5:30. And we've talked before about how I'm really sensitive to caffeine, but I was like, I'm going to have some coffee to get through this day. So I had too much coffee and was exhausted. So after volunteering at the event, I came home and I was just a wreck. Like I was exhausted, but also wired. So I couldn't relax.
Just completely out of whack.
Yeah, total mess. So that like screwed up my whole weekend. So I like lost my weekend, and I still have that layer of anxiety that I get when I have too much caffeine. Like I just constantly feel like I've screwed something up. I've done something wrong. Like any minute I'm going to get an email about this thing that I screwed up. And I know, like now I know that it's not real, that it's because of the caffeine and the like sleep schedule getting all screwed up and everything. But it's still this constant like,
it's like hypervigilance.
Yes, it is. It's totally hypervigilance. And it's like mental and physical. Like I can feel it manifesting in my chest. So all that to say right now, I'm a little bit manic.
Okay.
But over the last couple of weeks, I had been getting into that time scarcity and that feeling of like, I've got too much on my plate and I'm not feeling like who I want to be. Like I was out of line with my values. We've talked before about how one of the things that I value most is freedom and having time to do what I want to do. And I started realizing that this newsletter that we've talked about a few times that I created called Making It Easy, which is weekly dinner menus, that was taking so much more time than I thought that it would take. And at the same time, I wasn't enjoying it in the way that I thought that I would. Like it was honestly taking me like 4 to 6 hours a week to manage this thing and write it and, you know, all that goes into it. And that wasn't even including time that I needed to spend promoting it, to build an audience, to make it worthwhile. So I didn't do it last week. I didn't send the email. I didn't do the newsletter. And like I probably could have, but it would have meant sacrificing something else. And I had to make the decision of like, you know, what is worth it for me. And we've talked before about my story of how I'm like a quitter and I don't follow through with things. So I had to really like coach myself through that feeling of like, are you giving up on this, or is it actually the right decision for you based on where you're at in your life? And like, did you give it enough of a try? And honestly, like, if you're not enjoying it, why are you doing it? You know? So yeah, I think my newsletter's getting retired. I think I gave it a shot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're going to pull the plug.
I think so.
So what did you get out of the experience?
I learned a lot about Substack, which is great. I think that it's a really great tool for writers. And, you know, if that's your thing, if you like writing, That's another thing that I learned is I'm much better talking. I love getting on here and having conversations. I love, having meaningful conversations with people, whoever they are. I don't love sitting down and having to write. It's my personality doesn't come through. Maybe it's because I haven't practiced it enough, but it's just not my jam.
Yeah.
So I learned that about myself,
Cool.
which is valuable.
So valuable. We can't know things until we try them. We can't know how they're going to feel.
Yeah.
Huh.
It's true. Yeah. So that's where I'm at. I tried it. I had to coach myself through whether I was quitting or whether it was just not the right thing. And that's okay. Right? Like I started feeling like I had a bunch of bosses. Like all of my subscribers were now like people that I was obligated to. And I hate feeling obligation. It's one of my things. I hate that feeling. So it started feeling like more of an obligation and less of something that I wanted to do.
I have a question. What did you want to get out of the experience initially?
So I love cooking and recipes and everything. I love creating healthy meals, and I wanted to build a network of people that also feel the same way, or help people implement that in their lives if they don't have it. And in order to do that, it would be a full-time job to find those people and get them to subscribe. Like I did get a lot of subscribers through networking on Substack, but they were all other people that we just like, I'll subscribe to you if you subscribe to me. And then like, they're not making the recipes. Like, I think you're the only person that made any of my recipes, which I love you for.
I mean, I'm sad to not get your recipes, but I'm happier for you.
Well, I can definitely still send you ones that I love.
That's good. I mean, I love that you took swift action. And actually, that's something that I admire in you, is that I've seen you try a number of different things and you're like, oh, I launched this. We did it for a while. We shut it down. That's cool. And I love that because it shows the initiative to start something and then also to know when to pull the plug.
Yeah. And
then you harness the learning and that's it. And I think it's easy to kind of think, oh, I'm going to love doing this. It's going to be really great. And then when the rubber meets the road, it's like, no, actually, this is not sparking joy for me. Yeah. And as you said, what am I getting out of it?
Right. And there's a difference between, this is something I had to really learn for myself. There's a difference between something getting hard and you want to continue doing it. So the hard is worth it.
Yeah, for sure.
And then there's something is hard and it sucks.
But, right. But I think like something about you is you genuinely like helping people with the stuff that you know. You're like, these are like some of the things I know that I'm like pretty good at, and who can I help with it? So you've done that with various sort of podcasts and ideas for different coaching, like financial coaching, our podcast, Not Bad Advice, the recipes, but it all comes from that sort of spirit of generosity of wanting to share.
Yeah.
And help. And then sometimes things work for a little while and then we're like, yeah, no, this isn't quite right anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. And I like your perspective on that versus the perspective that I've had to come out of like feeling like a quitter. And you're saying like, I admire that you try things and then you stop when they're not good anymore. So that just like highlights these stories that we have about ourselves and that like, you've got to investigate those and get other people's perspectives and talk these things through so that you can make decisions that are best for you in the long run. Because that's really what we have to do is decide what makes us feel the best and the most alive and gives us the freedom to do the things that we actually want to do with our very precious short amount of time here.
Very precious. Okay, so this actually is a really good segue to my topic that I wanted to share with you, because you were talking just now about perspective and perspective, really can change everything. Like, right. So this is a book, How to Winter.
Okay.
That I want to talk about. So there was another book about quote unquote wintering before this, I believe it was called The Art of Wintering. I didn't read that one, but I did pick this one up. Why? Because I like the cover. It's very me, the stars, the purple. I often will pick books and wine by the design.
Who doesn't?
Who doesn't? I'm human. So anyways, it's a great book. And it was quite interesting. So it's called How to Win Winter. The writer is Carrie Leibowitz. And the subheading here is Harness Your Mindset to Thrive on Cold, Dark, or Difficult Days. And hilariously, my daughter saw this. And it happened to be the day that I went to a movie. I don't know if I told you this. I went to the movies by myself. Then I went to a bookstore and I bought a bunch of books, including this. And then I took myself out for dinner. And but it was quite amazing that I could do that on my own. Yeah. But my daughter heard it and then she saw the book and she's like, Mom, are you okay?
Yeah.
Oh my God, no, I'm fine. I enjoyed it. Don't worry.
Oh, that's so sweet.
I know, she's picturing me all alone, how to thrive during difficult days.
Again, that's stories, right? To you, that was a wonderful day of spending time by yourself and doing activities you like. And from her, it was like, oh no, are you okay?
Yeah. So this is about, wintering. The concept of wintering is how do we cope with winter months, both literally during the cold winter and then, of course, metaphorically being times that feel cold in our lives. I find it interesting because I'm a Torontonian, right? Mm-hmm. And so we have a very cold winter. Right now it's freezing. It's about -5 today, but it was -10. Doesn't even matter at a certain point when you're in the negatives. It's just freezing, right?
Yes.
And we have 4 distinct seasons here. Mm-hmm. So my whole life, we've always had these 4 seasons. And I quite like that. I mean, even though I don't love cold weather, I like to be cozy. I'm not really into, winter sports. I like to be cozy. But I realized about myself, I do like having the 4 seasons. So there is a level of acceptance that I have about winter. I'm like, yeah, that's just part of life. That's part of how the year goes. At the same time, I thought, okay, I'd be open to exploring different thoughts on winter because I think it has a bad rep. And people love to hate on winter.
I am one of those people.
Listen, all my Californian friends are like that.
Whenever someone asks me why I moved to California from South Dakota, I'm like, I never wanted to live through another winter. I grew up in South Dakota. I went to college in Colorado, and I literally packed my car the day after I graduated college and drove to California.
Okay, and so do you ever miss winter? The cold?
No, never. Even here, so we have our winter, and so it'll be 50 for a few months, or maybe 45. It'll be cool. You have to wear a coat. And after a couple months, I'm like, we need to go somewhere where there is sun and warmth. I can't do this.
Yeah. For sure, the sun is more pleasant, right? Mostly. But actually, I shouldn't say that because the concept of, some of the concepts in the book are challenging that. So I'm going to share some of the key themes. So I should mention that this writer went to some of the coldest, darkest parts of the world as part of her research.
Okay.
To explore, what kind of her initial assumption was, or hypothesis was, that the folks in these cold, dark places found ways to cope. But actually, the research showed that, well, no, they love it. Right. So why? What is it about that, and what's the learning? So there's a lot of science, there's a lot of anecdotes, there's a lot of stories. But I have pulled out kind of themes that I thought would be interesting to share. The first is around mindset, and I thought you'd find this interesting. She distinguishes between a positive mindset, the power of positive thinking, versus an adaptive mindset. Mm-hmm. So a positive mindset, kind of a fake positive mindset, could look something like, oh my gosh, don't worry, it'll be over soon. Or it could always be worse. It could always be colder. It could always be darker. Or another example could be, just think about how good the spring and summer will feel in contrast to this. Okay. And you're kind of reinforcing the negative thoughts about winter in those kinds of thoughts. So she was saying, don't do that. Instead, she talks about something called adaptive mindsets. And that's saying, well, what is the opportunity here? What is the opportunity for growth here, for joy here? at the same time as acknowledging what's challenging about it. Mm-hmm. Right? So what is that about? That's about like accepting the fact that life is contradictory and nuanced, which is something that you and I have talked about before. So here she says, we are deliberately focused on the most useful facet of a nuanced reality without denying that other perspectives might hold truth as well. So maybe it's an environment where you can have a certain kind of beauty, right? Because people who live in these environments, they often have a lot of rituals, and like they're in nature in certain ways, and they have a lot of community events, and there's a lot of beauty that they'll see in the winter landscapes and in the cold months and with candles and certain experiences. So what's that opportunity there for a certain specific kind of joy and experience, and at the same time acknowledging that for many people the darkness might mean extra fatigue, certain kinds of challenges, physical or emotional. So how can all of those things be true at once? So I thought that was a really interesting discussion of mindset, that it's not about just like, making everything perfect, but if anything, it's about holding multiple truths at once.
This is talking about winter, but that's applicable to anything in life, mm-hmm. right? That if you're mm-hmm. always trying to, like, if you're in a negative situation or something isn't ideal or whatever, because life is never ideal, if you're always thinking like, well, like, I'm going to be happy when summer comes, right? I'm going to be happy mm-hmm. when things are better. I'm going to be happy later on, or, whatever that is. And you're never able to like look at the present and be like, this also has beauty. This also has good things. There's things that I can appreciate about where I am right now. Mm-hmm. You're never present if you can't do that. You're always reaching for something else, and you never get to be happy now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, well said. So that was one thing that I thought was really interesting. That was like really pronounced in the book. Another thing that she talks about that really resonated with me, because I feel this as well, is about noticing how a pronounced winter makes us notice the cyclical nature of life, mm-hmm. right? So that's what's the learning there. It's remembering that difficult periods or cold periods are a normal part of life. So instead of fighting against them, how can we work with them? Because you can't fight against winter. I mean, the season is going to last as long as it lasts. The temperature, Mother Nature wins, So you adapt, you cope, you adapt, you make the most out of it, but you have to surrender to it.
We were just talking a couple episodes ago about cycles in business mm-hmm. and in life, and how you can't always be at your peak. You can't be productive at, high levels all the time. You can't be, going 100 miles an hour all the time. There's going to be slower periods. There's going to be down periods, and embracing those cycles is kind of a key mm-hmm. to understanding your body, what you need, how your business is, how your relationship is. Like, everything goes through cycles. And if you're always expecting it to be 75 and sunny all the time, you're never going to be you're never actually going to be able to be at your best, because you're not going to be able to embrace mm-hmm. those down times when you can get cozy and recover and spend some downtime. Like, a lot of people do kind of hibernate a little bit in the winter. And it is like everything is cyclical. Mm-hmm. That's just the way life works, and identifying those cycles and working with them instead of against them is so much more productive.
Yeah. And so it's such a powerful physical manifestation of the cycle. I mean, there is, it's one of the biggest cycles you can see in front of your eyes is nature, right? That the leaves falling off the trees, like snow, nothing's happening yet. Underground, all of this magic is happening, just waiting for the spring. And there's nothing you can do but kind of surrender to it. So I think that there is a really beautiful and powerful lesson in that when going through your life or going through your business, and taking that as a cue. Mm-hmm. Taking that as a cue. So there's a quote that I wanted to share about the cycles. Adapting to winter is also practice adjusting to whatever is in front of us. There are seasons of the year and seasons of life for putting ourselves out there, for pushing ourselves, for striving and learning and growing. And there are seasons for going inward, for slowing down, for healing, for taking stock. There will be months and years of great joy and bounty, and months and years of hardship and sadness. Learning to accept, even embrace wherever we are, whenever we are, is a practice of a lifetime. Knowing when to slow down and when to speed up is wisdom, the ability to listen to ourselves, to match the natural world, to work with circumstances rather to fight against them are skills that will aid us in every venture that we undertake. And winter gives us the chance to rehearse that every year.
When you mentioned that you wanted to talk about this topic, I had never heard the term wintering before, and I didn't look into it because I wanted it to be, new information coming from you. So I really thought that this was going to be like how to hibernate as a human, like like how to take the winter as downtime. And to just.
That's certainly part of the book, though. They talk about that because she talks about the fact that during winter months in most cultures, people do sleep more. Yeah. They need to rest more. They need to go inside and have those rituals and sleep more. And the light, the sun sets earlier, right? Like it's dark, so you kind of your body is cued to, okay, I'm going to go to bed now. I'm going to go to bed early. So part of it is that.
Yeah.
And that's not a bad thing. That's what she says. It's not a bad thing.
More sleep is never a bad thing.
More sleep is never a bad thing. Tune into our sleep episode to hear more.
Right.
Yeah.
The other topic that I was going to bring up was during this period of time scarcity that I was in, I was also, as we talked about on our New Year's episode, I've also been committing to saying yes to more activities and like being more social. So I had this like confluence of events where all of a sudden I had time scarcity, but I had also made plans with someone, a new friend. So it's someone that I have known in a professional capacity. And I reached out to her earlier in the month and was like, hey, I think we would get along well as friends if you want to get together and try it out. So we made plans for a couple weeks later. And that was right during when I was feeling all this time scarcity. And so that, in addition to just the weirdness of being an adult human, like all of a sudden, a couple days before getting together with her, I was like, should I cancel? Like, are we going to have anything to talk about? Is it going to be weird? Like, why am I doing this? Why am I putting myself through trying to have friends? Like, it was all brain, being the way brains are. Yeah. And of course I didn't cancel, and we had a lovely time. We took a walk for like 4 miles and talked the entire time, and we're going to get together again. And it was great. But it really brought up how hard it is to make friends as an adult and to make time for friendships.
Yes.
So the big things that I took away from it were when I reached out to her to ask if she wanted to get together, she had been actually feeling the same thing. So like if you've got that, kind of like if you meet someone at an event or something, or like you come across someone that you think that you want to be friends with, just reach out and ask. Like, I know it feels so awkward and so weird to be like, hey, you want to go on a friend date with me? But like, you're not going to get together if somebody doesn't take the first step. So just
make the first friend move.
Yeah, make the move. Like, what's the worst that's going to happen? And then second, when you start having second thoughts and thinking about canceling, because everyone, right, that people talk about this all the time now, that they make plans with people and everyone backs out at the last minute. Like, don't be that person. Like, make plans, commit to it. Your brain is going to try and talk you out of it. It's just resistance, and you're going to have fun. So do it. Make friends.
Make friends. Actually, I'd love to do a couple episodes on friendships and relationships as adults.
Yeah.
I think it's a good topic. I've thought about it a lot, like sort of losing touch with old friends, releasing that. Yeah. Sometimes some regret around that. Also knowing that's how you create space, and like that's just the cycle of life, right?
Yeah.
And then so many new friendships, and how to do that, and how to make time, and how do you know if this is a person that you want to be friends with, and kind of aligning interests. And there's a lot to talk about there.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. And I know what you mean. I actually, that's interesting you said that, because last week I made the first move for one friend who I met. And I mean, I met them one time in New York, and I really felt sort of this connection to them. So I called. Yeah, I called them, right? And just to say hello. And another old friend, I just called. It's not so revolutionary yet.
It is, though.
It is, though, isn't it? Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, to pick up the phone and call someone, like, it feels so crazy now.
I know, even my friend, and we do speak, but usually we plan out when we're going to speak.
Yes, always.
Because he lives in Europe. So it's like, okay, when, and will we meet on Zoom? And this time I called, and it's, hi, is everything okay?
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I'm fine. I'm saying hello. Oh, great. Okay, good. Yeah.
But yeah, that's the first thing you think when someone calls you out of the blue is something's wrong. Yeah. Or it was an accident.
Yeah. So you had a good time, though, with your new friend.
We had a lovely time.
2025 is going to be filled with people and projects, and
we'll see. I'm still a homebody.
You're like, hold on, stop.
I mean, back to the beginning of the show, I need a lot of freedom and a lot of downtime and a lot of just like time to myself, reading and letting my mind go free, and cooking and puttering around the house.
I need that too. I mean, that's what I'm really trying to lean into this year. Yeah. And so far, successfully, I might add.
Nice.
Yeah, so far I've been doing some good acts of nourishing myself and with that spaciousness.
Good. So a lot of what we've been talking about requires emotional intelligence.
What a nice segue.
So you have been taking a course?
Yes, I started a new course on emotional intelligence, where I'm one of the learners, not to be confused with a course that I'm designing on emotional intelligence. So I already have, quite a lot of understanding of different facets of emotional intelligence and how I might want to structure a program, which I've been hired to do. But there were a few gaps, and I thought, why don't I take this course? Because it's Daniel Goleman's emotional intelligence course. And for anyone who doesn't know, he's considered sort of the grandfather of emotional intelligence.
Okay.
And really wrote the first book on emotional intelligence, and many, many books since, and is considered just a very respected expert in it. So I thought, why not learn from the master? So I signed up for the course. Now I'm only in week 2 of week 12, so a lot more learning to go. But in the spirit of simplicity and spaciousness, I have put a limit on myself. I'm not allowed to sign up for any other courses during this time.
Good call.
Or any other coaching. I'm working with my coach. I'm doing this course. That's it. Nothing else. So that feels quite joyful to be like, no, you're not allowed. So that's been great. I'm in week 2 right now, and I'm really excited to dive into the framework. I have to say, it's designed in a really comprehensive, organized way. The facilitators have been great so far, and we're beginning with a topic that's near and dear to my heart, which is self-awareness, which is the first of the 4 principles of emotional intelligence, is the self-awareness piece. And we've talked about mindfulness. We're talking about focus, understanding our values, what we stand for. So these are, of course, topics that are near and dear to my heart, but I'm always curious to see what else I can get from another person's perspective or approach to teaching it. So the focus on mindfulness has been really interesting, that this really underscores the whole program. Because we're going to be going into relationship management, conflict, how to deal with conflict, how to manage your own emotions when you're triggered. But the mindfulness piece and the focus are going to apparently be integrated. I mean, it's not really surprising when you think about it, but it's striking that that's really the piece that seems like it's going to be integrated throughout the whole process.
That's great.
Yeah.
So it's not self-directed. You're actually attending courses with the facilitator?
Correct. Yeah. So there's a lot of the way it's designed, which I appreciate, is that every day there's a little micro lesson that you do, sort of 15, 20 minutes. And then every 2 weeks you meet as a group and you talk about the bigger themes. So it's a lot of it is self-directed, but you are following the schedule, which is important for me because, as I've shared before, I do not do well in a self-directed course. I need something to show up for. So I think it's a good balance.
Great. And is it something for anyone, or is it specifically for coaches and higher level, like people like you?
It is for anyone. There are a number of coaches and facilitators and sort of mental health professionals and academic types that seem to take it. And there's a lot of people from different backgrounds. The focus is very much on emotional intelligence in work contexts and in leadership contexts. So there's a lot of individuals, and I was really happy to see a diversity in terms of where people were calling in from. There were people from the US, there was somebody calling in from India. Just in my small group, there was somebody calling in from Papua New Guinea. So there was, and I love it when people, oh my gosh, it's 4:00 in the morning or whatever. Wow. And people are making the effort to call in. So I'm excited to hear about the different perspectives on the topics from different folks in the group.
Okay, great. Well, we can link to that class in the show notes.
Absolutely. Yeah. And more to come as I continue to learn. I'd love to share with you some of the key themes that we're talking about.